Well, hey everybody, welcome back to Spartan Theology. Today we're just doing a little after show, kind of talking about Travis's recent debate. I got Travis on here and Eric. We're just gonna kind of just further expand on his argument, maybe say a few things that maybe didn't come across so clear in the debate, and then we know we can just address some things that Raging Atheist said and whatnot. So it's just gonna be kind of like a chill, just talk through what went on in the debate. But I guess when we get started, we can let you guys introduce yourself a little bit, and we'll get going. So here, you want to go first, Eric?
Yeah, sure. Well, anyways, it should be obvious what my name is, and so and that I shouldn't have to tell you what it is. And so, I recently got into Christian apologetics. I actually did. I got started last year. Most of the stuff that I do mostly has to do with young Earth creationism. But at the same time, no, I also definitely am not afraid and like to branch out and whatnot. And so, I have done 2 debates so far, and I'm going to try to get a third one planned here soon. And so, and what's funny, this whole thing actually was my idea. And so, I'm going to be handing it off to you now, Travis.
Okay, so I'm Travis. I've been a Christian for about 2.5, coming on 3 years now. I grew up secular, atheist. When I came to faith, I didn't know anything about Christianity. But so I'm a recent convert. I'm involved in outreach ministry. There's an outreach ministry that I volunteer with and work with here in Dallas called Our Calling, doing outreach to the homeless. And I'll jump on and do a debate every now and then too, kind of like this one.
Yeah, cool. And we could pull up the debate if we want to. That's what I was just thinking. If there's any parts we want to go to, but I guess the easiest way. I don't know how exactly we want to start this, but I mean the debate topic was, just for anybody watching, was does physics point to theism? Correct. That was the title. So
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe if you want to just kind of lay out your argument, Travis, and then we can kind of just go from there. We'll kind of talk about what we think about it and what.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess what I'll do is kind of just lay out what my argument was, and then kind of have y'all maybe address that or
I'll probably just end up asking you some questions too, because I'm no physics expert or anything. So I'm just so maybe as we understand the argument better, some of the people in the chat.
Yeah, and I personally am more of a paleontology and biology guy. I know some physics, but I can guarantee that Travis definitely knows a lot more than I do. But I certainly am not against learning more about physics. I actually do have this DVD here, just teaching me some things about physics, and so
Yeah, and just a disclaimer, I have a bachelor's in earth science, so I'm not a quantum cosmologist myself, but I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, and these aren't unique to me. I didn't make up these arguments, but basically it's do you want me to just kind of lay out what my opening
I think that'd probably be the easiest way, is kind of go through your opening. Maybe don't have to say every bit of it, but just kind of most of it. That's fine.
All right, sure. So in the hunt to bridge quantum mechanics with general relativity, the holographic principle is widely regarded as an essential feature of a successful theory of everything. The holographic principle states that gravity in a 3-dimensional volume can be described by quantum mechanics on a 2-dimensional surface. Physicists believe that quantum entanglement is the key to this mechanism. A cooperation of physicists and mathematicians from the University of Tokyo and Caltech have made a significant step toward unifying general relativity and quantum mechanics by explaining how space-time emerges from quantum entanglement. And at this point, it's a real easy way to look at it is you have 2 particles that once they interact, what happens to one will simultaneously happen to the other, despite any distance between them, showing that the information is more fundamental than the space. Then I mentioned how a UK, Canadian, and Italian study provided what researchers believe is the first observational evidence that our universe could be a complex hologram. And there were astrophysicists investigating irregularities in the cosmic microwave background that found there's substantial evidence supporting a holographic explanation of the universe. In fact, as much, if not more, than there is for the traditional explanation of these irregularities by using the theory of cosmic inflation. Then, therefore, based on this, as well as studies in quantum cognition and quantum decision theory, which state that information processing in entangled states is the product of mind, I made a syllogism. Information processing in entangled states is the product of mind. The universe emerges from information processing in an entangled state. Therefore, the universe is the product of mind, and this mind is who we call God.
Okay, and just hi, invoking theism. Thanks for coming by. Yeah,
glad to have a fellow idealist.
Hey, man. What's up?
Yeah, I wanted to invite you because I knew you probably understand the argument a little better than we do. So.
Yeah. No, thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
and,
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've noticed, like that was very, very consistent about raging during that whole debate. He was asking you continuously, you know, how in the world like does this point to God? But yet, you know, during the whole entire thing, that's what you were doing. You were saying, hey, this is why.
Right. Basically, like space-time, space-time emerges from the same properties that we're studying in quantum cognition and quantum decision theory. That, you know, we have emergent space-time from the, you know, it's describable in the same terms as quantum cognition.
Mm-hmm.
So quantum cognition. Let me just try and understand what this.
Yeah.
I mean, like, yeah. Could we like go over what this is? I'm gonna look it up too, but.
Yeah. So to kind of summarize, like they can use mathematical models for like human like thought, decision making, information processing, cognitive abilities are describable in terms of quantum mechanics and like information processing in an entangled state, and it's the same that space-time emerges out of.
Okay. And this is pretty like this isn't the controversial part of your argument necessarily, not as
Right.
much.
And Diedrich Eretz has a really good paper, a 2009 paper on this too.
Okay. So then from there, and then it's basically like, so one thing I do want to touch on is the way we can get into this probably in the beginning too. Like I think a lot of people when they hear holographic principle, and definitely Raging Atheist in his stream did, when he heard that, he heard simulation theory.
Right.
And
No,
that's not
like
the same
totally
thing. So,
different. Like, no.
Yeah. So it's basically just has nothing to do with it, essentially. Like the way you say it's like our universe is like a 2D hologram, but that doesn't mean that it's any less real.
Right. So think of 2D quantum information processing, right? And it projects, like our universe is a 3D projection of the 2D information processing.
Just like how like binary on a computer doesn't make what you're looking at any less 3D or real or whatever in that sense.
Yeah, you can kind of think of it like a projection, like a film on a projector.
And you kind of agree. You're and so invoking theism. You're an idealist too. So you following along with all this, like you.
Right. I would just add that for someone who might not be able, who doesn't see themselves be able to jump on this right away, our space-time acts as if it's a virtual world rather than an objective world. It's pretty much kind of like what we're trying to get at. It can be modeled as in the same way a virtual reality can be modeled.
So the fundamental part of reality is just information. Is essentially the idea.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
And from earlier, he was talking about quantum cognition. So in quantum biology, we are starting to see how we can actually model the brain, and in the same way that we can model the emergence of space-time by Hilbert space. We can model it by Hilbert space, pretty much. I don't know if you touched on what, Travis, you touched on what Hilbert space is.
No, you basically jumped in right at the beginning. So.
Okay, yeah. But Hilbert space is basically, it's not actual like three-dimensional space that we exist in, but it's kind of a math speak like for basically all possible quantum states, including the wave function. So it's just a mathematical representation of all possible quantum states. And then, of course, now I would argue for something like conscious realism. That's what I would argue for. But anyways, the brain can be modeled in the same way by Hilbert space, in the same way that space-time can. And you can look at quantum entanglement and superposition in the same way how we will hold conflicting positions and ideas before deciding which one we'll go with. It can be modeled in the same exact way.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah. Quantum decision theory. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, our free will is like when we make a decision, that's like the wave function collapse, or what is that like?
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we collapse the so us holding, okay, which decision should I make? You have these conflicting decisions, and then we collapse into one decision that we want to make. It's the same, it'd be modeled in the same exact way as what happens.
Right. Yeah, we can mathematically model it in the same way. Yeah.
And this is similar, obviously, to IP is probably like the most popular person people could go to that talks about this relating to Christianity.
And Johannian Rotz.
Okay. But as far as like a YouTube person, but yeah. He's got a YouTube channel too. Actually, I think you said that.
I would also point you to Kyle Allender's channel, Christian Idealism, and he is actually he's actually arguing more for conscious realism than I think both of them are at this moment. I don't know if you guys are familiar with I forget the guy's name who is kind of the forefront of defending that, but Kyle's basically trying to make an argument in a video series for a consciousness-based physics. Mm-hmm. So you can think about it in that way too. Because Travis, heard you earlier. You say, the theory of everything would be how do we reconcile relativity theory and quantum gravity? That's what people want.
Quantum entanglement is essential to that. Yeah.
Exactly. Absolutely. Exactly.
Yeah, and so anyways, going back to IP, and honestly, the very first time that I ever heard about the digital physics thing that he uses, and he made a video about it, actually was from him. And even James himself, from Modern Day Debate, he has said that that's one of the reasons why that he loves IP is the fact that he will bring up all these things that he's never even heard of, and right. And I also can't imagine that there probably were some people who were using that as something against you, Travis, saying that, oh, well, he just got that from IP. But the problem is, if they're going to say that, all that they really are doing is just using a genetic fallacy.
Right. Yeah. I got it. And in fact, yeah, I mean, I was a substance dualist, but some of the work by Johannan, IP, Kyle, and so I started looking at the arguments and looking up the peer-reviewed physics for myself, and I was like, yeah, I mean, this is legit,
Yeah, it's just a tough thing for me. It's just a whole thing. It seems I don't have a problem with it, but it's just so out there. I just know so little about it that it's easier to just be maybe, I don't have a problem with it, but I just haven't looked into it enough. But yeah, the more and more I hear about it, the more I want to. Yeah,
and one thing I really want to clear up too is Rage kept saying, oh, it's just a fine tuning. He kept trying to go to the fine tuning, and I addressed his objections to the fine tuning, but this is an argument from contingency. It's not a fine tuning argument. You could even think of it as a cosmological argument, but it has nothing to do with the fine tuning. Yeah. It's
no, it doesn't.
Against the straw man. I'm that's not what I'm arguing, man.
Yeah, something I heard him say a lot in his after show, and was just how he just cannot wrap his head around if someone can believe in multiverse, how you could still believe in God, and I don't know why that was
Okay, yeah. As a matter of fact, I need to address that. When I'm talking about string theory and how I would think, I'm saying that it's very plausible that there could be other universes, but I reject an infinite multiverse. And in fact, I think you're going to run into logical inconsistencies. And what I was basically saying is that I could grant him an infinite multiverse, and even the fine tuning, I could grant him that, and it wouldn't affect my argument. So I'm not saying that I agree that there's an infinite multiverse. I don't. I think it's logically incoherent.
Yeah, but that's a separate argument, basically, is what you're saying. Like, as far as this argument goes, that's fine. Sure. You know, it wouldn't hurt. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And then, yeah, he brought that up a lot, and I'm sure he brought that up. I know I heard him say it a few times in the debate. So.
I know, and I was like, I can grant you that. Like, that doesn't touch my argument, you know?
Yeah, and like you said, he kept going back to the fine-tuning. Travis, you have a YouTube channel. That's what we got from True. So, no, you do not right now, right?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Have you have you ever thought about having one?
No, as far as like ministry, I'm involved in outreach, and of course, you know, before all of this happened, you know, I'm really heavily involved in that. But no, I mean, I'm content. You know, I have a lot of friends that have channels, and you know, I'll jump on there.
Yeah, I know. That's why it almost seems easier at some points. I'm like, I started mine, and it's a lot of work trying to do like make your own videos.
Yeah, definitely.
And actually, like, you know, a lot of times I'll work behind the scenes for James, like setting up debates between people.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So Travis, about that, since I said I'm trying to start mine up, maybe me, you, and James, I can try to figure out my next one.
Your next debate.
Like a debate?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, would you like debating an atheist, or I mean?
No. So
he's not real big on one thing. Like, just to clarify real quick, is modern day debate doesn't really do like theological debates between two Christians much anymore.
All right. Well, what I had in mind, and so on my channel, I had a poll for people to vote what they want my next topic to be, and so it looked like the mine was going to be, did all of humanity descend from Adam and Eve, but then that one got beat out like by the topic, did dinosaurs evolve into birds, and so so that will be my topic, and I've been wanting to debate Ken Hovind a second time.
Wow.
So I thought, hey, why not?
Have you debated him before?
Yep.
Well, I'm gonna have to check that out, bro. I didn't know that. Wow.
We debated back in September of last year. We debated on the topic like, did dinosaurs live with people? And yeah.
I'm sure he said they did.
Yeah. Well, I did in a way. I said that, well, birds, yeah, but I mean, T-Rex and whatnot, yeah, that never happened.
Right. Yeah, and I'm a theistic evolutionist, so I mean,
I think we all basically are. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess
bunch of heretics, huh?
Yeah.
Right. For real.
We're over God, so don't listen to us. But yeah, so getting back, let's see. I know he touched
a little bit off.
Yeah. No, it's all good. No problem there. But I do want to touch on like the fine tuning stuff that he brought up, and just like the way, because like I know that wasn't your argument, but just the things he brought up, a lot of people bring up, and like when he just started going on and on about how there's so much like. First, I know, and I listened to his after show today, so like most of that, but I know it's like obviously his mindset was the same in the debate because it was right afterwards, and he brought up a lot about just like, okay, people can't live at like the North Pole or whatever, you know, there's all this useless space, like people didn't evolve to live in Greenland or whatever, you know, like there's all this earth is so hard for us to live in, and how like they just seem like this is like so clear evidence against the fine tuning. Like it doesn't make sense when people bring up fine tuning, and I'm just curious.
Okay, so to touch on that, it's kind of like I believe I told him during the debate is that if you didn't have the parameters that we have now, like, you know, with the temperature variations, the amount of bacteria, the hurricanes, and all these things, life as we would not be able to be here without them. And you know, I think it's fallacious to say that God made the universe for like our personal comfort, and you know, I wouldn't hold that position at all. I think we're here. He made the universe in such a way for billions of human beings to exist for a short amount of time with an offer of redemption and to overcome evil.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I just don't think, and then like, because obviously it was more of like a physics and cosmological argument, so they started getting into like, how there's all this space, there's only this one planet. Why do we have all? And it just seems like such a ridiculous argument to me. Like, just on its face, like, even if you just think about it, like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna question that, like, oh, God, everything else, that's my one hang up. You know what I mean? Like, who knows why God did these things? But then when you look into like Hugh Ross's work, it like blows you away how much like this stuff you think is so irrelevant, and then like he'll get into like if Jupiter was like 10 feet farther away, I mean, obviously that's a hyperbole, but you know what I mean? Like, it matters so much, each of these little things. And
right. I have his book, The Creator and the Cosmos, and like at the end of the book, there's like over 1,000 parameters like in the universe and our Earth, our solar system, everything. They have to be exactly as they are in order for us to be here. And like, one thing I know, like myself, like having a background in earth science, like we have to have the precision in like the late heavy bombardment period, plate tectonics, volcanism. Like one thing that hugely impacted the Earth is the planetary collision about 4.5 billion years ago that formed our moon and transformed our atmosphere, making it habitable, like set the rotation axis tilt like we have it now. And so, yeah, I mean, his arguments are just completely fallacious. Basically, it's like, I don't like the way things are. Like, I wish we could live in space and everything. Therefore, it's not designed. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, and they brought up like the extinction events that happened like with the dinosaurs and all that, and then they don't even mention that like that's the only reason we could drive our cars around, like
right. Yeah, that's what I said, that like we're using technology, the technology of that right now to have this conversation.
Yeah, and it's just like, it's crazy when you think about it, but it's just like, it blows my mind sometimes when people like, and I'm not saying every atheist is closed-minded or whatever, but sometimes they are for sure, like they just start saying some of these things that just clearly shows that in some aspects of this, they're definitely being closed-minded and don't want to see.
And man, it's actually funny that you mentioned like the extinction of the dinosaurs. It's because this is one of the reasons why I go with IP's view of evolution. I'm the one like that's advocated by Simon Conway Morris. Maybe if it was that. And so if it wasn't, so had that meteor not hit the Earth, there is a really good chance, and like the humans would have. There's a really good chance, like the humans would have never came into existence. So and then therefore, that happened for a reason. It happened just so, and then it happened just so, and then that way it could give future rise to us.
Exactly. Yeah, I wish I would have asked Cy Gart when I had him on, like what view of evolution he holds to.
Oh yeah, I totally forgot the fact that you had him on your channel.
Have you guys read his book?
I have, yeah.
I haven't read his book. No, I need
he basically says that the only glimpse into his view, he basically articulates it as at the teleology is pretty much built in at the biochemical level, and it basically forms emerge from out of that. So that was kind of how he looks at it.
Okay.
He didn't get into like all the nuts and bolts of that. That basically that's how he kind of looks at that at the most base layer processes. The plans for what's supposed to happen are there.
Right.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
He calls his view divine instead of intelligent design. He calls it divine design.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool hearing him when people, like I asked him, how like every time you bring up any kind of fine tuning, like every atheist basically brings up the puddle analogy or whatever, and he just like completely laughed and just was like, that is so bad.
Yeah, that's what he was Rage was trying to do, and I'm like, have you heard of the firing squad analogy? I mean, it like totally blows that out of the water.
Yeah, definitely. And so Cy Gart's book is one that I definitely do have on my wish list. I haven't gone into it yet. It's because of the fact that I'm in the middle of reading so many books. And so, once when I finish those, then yes. What's the name of it again?
The Works of His Hands.
The Work of His Hands?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I got mine back in November, and he had a thing like if you got it back then when it first came out, he was like doing like personal signed booklets.
No, nice.
So he's like, hey Travis, God bless. Like
That's
on the
cool.
book.
That's cool. Yeah, and he even commented on your like Facebook post where I saw that. It was pretty cool.
Oh
He's like,
he was like, congratulations, and he was like, I think he said you have a lot of patience answering all those stupid questions.
yeah, he's funny. He was really cool
funny.
to have on.
Yeah.
Let's see. So we kind of touched on this holographic principle and whatnot. I mean, when I'm trying to think, like it's hard to like nail too much down because Raging Atheist really didn't like combat your argument much at all because he really didn't understand it. And I mean, I don't want to like sound like I'm disparaging him either by like not understanding it. You know, I mean, it's pretty complicated. If you've never heard of it, that's fine. You know, but he just like he didn't. So that's just
Well, see, but I mean, you touch on a really important part of the debate because that was my only argument. Like, I didn't argue for fine tuning and everything. And when he said like I know in his after show he said, well, I finally pinned him down to answer about the fine tuning. I'm like, if I would say that the universe is made for us to be here, and I use the analogy of like uploading the information into a disk to run a program like at the time of the Big Bang. So it's like, but it's important to know that my argument it's not a fine-tuning argument like we were saying. And of course, you know, anyone watching the debate can see that my argument went unrefuted.
Yeah, okay. I remember something I wanted to touch on though. So he basically like mentioned that like, oh, there's no way your argument is legit because you claim to know like what happened before the Big Bang or whatever.
Oh boy.
You know, and like no scientist, you know what I mean? Like, oh, if he figured it out, why he'd get a Nobel Prize, whatever. And I don't think that's what you're saying.
No. It's saying that the universe is an information construct, that you have this information processing and through quantum entanglement, space and time are not fundamental. Like I said, like, you know, you have the particles or, you know, the universal wave function, and like, you know, so the space and you know, time is embedded in space. So that's not fundamental as the information. Not that like I can do measurements and know what happened before.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like even William Lane Craig, I mean, basically says like the universe had a beginning. So he's claiming to know like that there was, you know what I mean? He's not like saying he could do the math based on before the Big Bang, but he's claiming to say like the philosophical, like this is what happened, or you know what I mean? Basically what you're saying. You're not claiming to understand the physics before the Big Bang.
No, I'm just appealing to emergent space-time.
Yeah.
That space and time is not fundamental.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was saying that, you know, the constants, you know, like he mentioned, like, because we don't know what happened before like 10 to the minus 35 seconds, like after the Big Bang.
Planck time or whatever.
Yeah, the Planck time, yeah. And so I'm like, well, my argument would kind of concede that because I'm saying that space-time itself emerges from the entanglement and information processing.
Right, and I also like to add there, kind of the whole point of why research into emergent space-time is being done is a lot of people think a lot of physicists think that is our closest we've gotten to coming up with a theory of quantum gravity. And to talk meaningfully about what happened, you know, right before the Big Bang, we need a theory of quantum gravity. So emergent space-time is actually you could actually see that as one of our best candidates for actually understanding that. So if he knew that, then he wouldn't really be making that objection. Because even if the Big Bang is not the absolute beginning of space-time, it just pushes it back to some pre-quantum event. But nonetheless, your argument holds because we're saying that, well, at base layer, it's quantum information, all the way down. So you can say what you want about what we don't know about Big Bang, but it's when the universe goes classical is what the Big Bang is saying.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So like his argument and his criticisms, you know, were like towards classical, and I wasn't even arguing I was arguing for the quantum origin, you know, the underlying information processing and entanglement. And I just thought it was really ironic that he kept trying to push me into like a fine-tuning argument. I'm like, that's not my argument.
I find that funny too.
Yeah, they basically pushed you into fine-tuning and simulation theory. Like that was their argument to an argument that you never made. So,
But yeah,
did you watch the debate invoking?
Sadly, unfortunately, no, because I wish I could have some more context around here. But from what I'm hearing, from the objections you guys are bringing up, I'm kind of able to follow here. And since I'm familiar with the arguments you're using, Travis, where you're coming from, I find it interesting because it seems like I feel like a lot of these debates where we make these kind of quantum idealist type arguments, most of the debate is just the opponent having to wrap their minds around the data.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he really had his curiosity sparked with the the universe being a hologram, a 3D projection of the 2D information processing. Like he was really like fascinated, with that.
Yeah, but he did mention so much that like he'd never heard of this and all this stuff. Like it was such a crazy argument. And I mean, I just feel like if he really did his research, he would have heard IP at some point. Like if you just type in on YouTube, I'm sure if you type in like Christian apologetics physics, like IP will be like the first one.
What I thought was interesting is he said he did all this research into string theory and he didn't know what the holographic principle was. I'm like, it's like from the information paradox of the black hole. It's like we discovered it through string theory. That's what I didn't understand.
That's hilarious.
And then I did hear him bring up a lot too, this like dark flow that he wanted to keep talking about, and I didn't even understand what that was. So I don't know if you're familiar. I think you said you were.
Yeah, somewhat. I can show you like piles of peer review that say it's like there's absolutely no evidence for it. I will hold more to like the dark energy, the cosmological constant that's expanding the universe and it's accelerating in velocity. I think dark flow is really speculative from what I've seen. Like I'm certainly no expert on it, but there's a lot of peer review that says it's just speculation.
And it's basically saying that there's like a single point somewhere outside of our universe that all the universe is like expanding towards.
Well, like I think he would try to argue like he didn't quite understand. It's kind of says that like there could be a force outside of space-time that's pulling the galaxies, and he's saying, well, if there's a force outside of space-time, that means could probably be a multiverse. I think was his argument, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, and you also even did catch him on guard, and even with some of that, he also even admitted it was by the fact that some of the arguments that you were presenting to him, he even said so himself, and like that, some of this definitely did not pop up in any of his research on it.
Yeah, I just think I'm just like shocked that he says he did all this research on string theory, didn't even know what the holographic principle was. Like, yeah.
And that's pretty foundational to string
that is
theory.
really interesting. That would go unchecked.
You would kind of think that it would, right?
Yeah,
right. Because this whole discussion, string theory, holographic principle, emergent space-time, it's all around one thing, quantum gravity. So atheists love Sean Carroll. Sean Carroll is an advocate of emergent space-time. So I don't know.
Are most quantum physicists idealist?
No.
So it's like they like. Yeah, I'm just trying to think because I also like really just don't know.
One argument like layman atheists will like to use is, well, why aren't more physicists Christians then? And the fact is like look at Frank J. Tipler, who he was an atheist physicist and became a Christian based on his studies in physics. So it's important to realize that we have like Christians and atheists. We have prominent scientists on both sides of the fence with that.
Yeah, and I'm not like when people appeal to stuff like that, it's like so irrelevant. Like most of their day is not related to like, like most of everyone's whatever you do for a job, you're just doing like your little section. You're just doing your job. You can be a historian or a paleontologist or a biologist. You're not like studying the metaphysical implications of evolution like every day. You know what I mean? You're just like doing something in a lab.
That's like saying all physicists drive Buicks. I mean, it's not relevant to my actual argument,
Exactly. It's like not every engineer is like coming up with a next like theory of gravity or like, and it's just yeah.
What do you guys think was Raging Atheist's best objection? Like what was his best objection that he came up with?
That's a very, very good question. I have to think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can just see that like basically his only real objection that like was actually towards your argument was like, how does this actually point towards Christian God or God? And I don't, that really wasn't even what you were getting at. Like it was, does it point to theism? Does it point? And then he just basically objected like you're like, so the whole argument just leads to there is like a mind that is foundational to everything, and we call that mind God. And I can see how some people can hear that and think like it almost sounds like pantheism or whatever. Like you can just call the universe God, and you're just like making up a God because you define it any way you want. And I don't think that's the case, but I do think I do understand like how people can hear it that way.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to touch on is like him dismiss. He kept saying, I think during his after show that I was using word salad. I think, and is that a fallacy?
I don't.
He said that whenever he pushed me on why a God should be behind it, I just engaged in word salad. And I'm like, no, it's called quantum cognition, quantum decision theory, and there's peer-reviewed scientists, who make this argument. It's not me just thinking it up. I mean, this is actually legitimate peer review. And like because he didn't understand it, he's like, just word salad. And I'm like, no, man, it's quantum cognition, quantum decision theory. It's a real thing.
I love that because I get that on Twitter all the time. Twitter is the place where I kind of just dump what I'm thinking about throughout the day. And I'll get word salad when they press me on stuff. I got to go kind of give them the details and stuff. Got to get into that kind of philosophy speak or science speak or whatever. They lob it at me like it's an actual fallacy that's in the books.
Right. Basically, it equates to I don't understand or get your argument. Therefore, I'm just dismissing it. Therefore, I've refuted it.
And I've had the same thing happen like with a lot of young Earth creationists, like who I have debated like on Facebook groups and whatnot, and so I totally understand as to where you all are coming from about it.
Yeah, sadly, young Earth creationists a lot of times can be worse than atheist trolls.
Unfortunately, so. And I
hate to say that, but it's been my experience.
Which it is really sad that it has to be that way. It's because of the fact that I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't really think that with that kind of behavior that some of them do, I am not saying that all of them are like this. I mean, there actually are some actually pretty legit, actual Christ-like ones. But some of the ones that I came across, especially after I debated Ken Hovind, some of them were really harsh, and I really don't think that with that kind of behavior like that, they really are helping with the reputation of Christianity. I mean, there was one young Earth creationist like who sent me a message after I debated Ken Hovind. I kid you not. He said that he wanted to come fly down where I live and beat the crap out of me. I'm like, over someone who you don't even know? Like, really?
It's because you don't hold to their particular interpretation of Genesis chapter 1. Then you're just,
Yeah, and I haven't gotten too much.
And it's like, really worth it to pay all that money and invest all that time because, right? Really?
It's really must not like your arguments, man.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, and I have friends who are old Earth creationists and whatnot, and even though that we disagree about Genesis, You know, but at the same time, though, I also am not going to say that, oh, you're undermining biblical authority. Oh, you don't believe the resurrection and whatnot. It's because that we all do take God's word. It's just it's just that we interpret it differently, and unfortunately, that's unfortunately the reason why that I left Celebrate Recovery, is because that there was one day when a friend of mine gave me a book by Hugh Ross, and I was just minding my own business, and then there was this younger creationist there who was, I mean, he was shaming me for it, and then he went as far as saying that I don't believe in the resurrection.
Yes.
For some reason, like Hugh Ross is like their arch enemy. Like they hate Hugh Ross.
I know, and he like holds the Bible like way stricter than like a lot of other people.
Hugh Ross has taken down Kent Hovind. He's taken down Jason Lyle.
Ken Ham.
He's taken down all those guys. They have no argument against Ross. It is I just find it crazy that you know, the church I actually attend, I was raised young earth creationist, and that is the view that my current church holds.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that they can do that and stuff, but I researched myself out of it. And one time I was told by at the pulpit that if you do not care about the age of the earth as it relates to Genesis, then you're engaging in moral relativism. Like, and I'm just
just straw man.
I know it's crazy, and you know, maybe this is a little part of the flesh side of me, but the guy who said that, there's a whole series by Vice Rhino of him refuting that guy. Like, he has a whole series of him debunking his arguments. So if you want to see that, it's funny. But I mean, that is their mindset, that this particular interpretation is as crucial as your salvific status.
Which it's not. I mean, Christianity does not depend upon whether or not if Genesis is literal 6-day material creation. What it depends upon is a resurrection. The bottom line is if that didn't happen, well, then Christianity, who can kiss that goodbye. Not if the days are literal 6-day, 24-hour material creation days.
And it just it bothers me because it feels to me that young earth creationism is like just the easy. They act like it's like so easy to be a theistic evolutionist, but I mean, it just seems like to be a young earth creationist, you're just like, all right, this seems like the easiest interpretation. I don't ever have to think about it again. I don't have to reconcile any difficulties. I just take it based on the English language and just go from there and just argue with everybody that says anything different. And
forget what they thought in the ancient Near East. You know.
Yeah, exactly. There's like so much more to it, and there's obviously so much more to every other part of the Bible. I don't know why we think that like Genesis has to be the. I don't know if it's like this argument that maybe it gets more complicated as you go, or like the beginning has to be the simplest part.
I mean, that's like saying you're not a real Christian if you don't hold to the rapture. I mean, that's like
yeah, exactly. And you know, and what they're doing, you know, in my own opinion, what they're doing is like that they're trying to use a equivocation fallacy by saying that, oh, if you want to be a Christian, you have to believe that, of course, Jesus is the Messiah and he died for you, and you have to believe that the earth is 6,000 years old. You have to believe in a worldwide flood and whatnot. But the Bible does not say that. The Bible says that if you give your life to Christ, you are saved, which means that you are, like that by definition, you are a Christian if you believe Jesus died for you.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to say, so
we're getting a little bit off topic.
No, yeah, I wanted to go back. So one interesting thing as it relates to your debate, Travis, with Raging Atheist, is I was listening to a very recent modern day debate. It was Tom Jump and this woman versus this other guy, these other two theists. I forget the name. But I remember an objection that Tom Jump brought up about emergent space-time, and he was actually using emergent space-time to argue for atheism, and I was like really I was like, oh, that's interesting. So his objection was, as it relates to emergent space-time, that so the theists' argument was that when you go back, how do you go from stasis, static, to dynamic? So you need that motion pretty much actualized. He was going down that route. Something needs to actualize that. And Tom Jump said that no, quantum mechanics does this. And he brought emergent. I'm like, oh, I see what he's saying. So he's basically stopping too short. He's saying that the quantum mechanical system is able to produce space-time, but I found it really interesting that why I say stop too short is because he still doesn't answer, well, one, I mean, where does the information come from, and two, what's processing the information? Like why is the information all of a sudden being processed into producing space-time? But so he conceded the whole emergent space-time deal, but said that quantum mechanics is the thing that's doing it.
Well, what's interesting, touching on that too, is the fact that, our universe is described like, I don't know if you know what pan-computationalism is, but basically it compares to like, it's very similar to digital physics, that basically our universe can be described in terms of computer science, like, quantum phenomena happening, that we see is remarkably similar to computer science, like binary digits, ones and zeros, here or there, up or down, and everything, and that it's mathematical and logical, and that it functions like a computer. And I would argue that a source of intelligence is required for that kind of information process.
Absolutely right, exactly. And I think just saying that, oh, quantum mechanics, therefore I've solved, I've solved the problem, doesn't really.
You have to explain why it's doing that and why it's so intelligible,
Exactly. So I was thinking like, okay, well, what could a potential objection be? Because I haven't heard any really good objections to this argument, really. I feel like you might have to, because, well, maybe Sean Carroll has said something because he opts in for emergent space-time. But anyways, I just brought that up because that was really the only type of objection I've really heard to that, from an interesting angle, saying that it's just quantum mechanics. That's all it is.
Right.
Yeah, I'd have a hard time with Tom Jump's debates.
But
seems like he can take anything and turn it into an argument for atheism, and it's just
and so I've been noticing that he's been doing a lot of flat Earth debates, and I mean, of course, I definitely do agree with him, like that the Earth is round and whatnot. And even during his other debates, I have noticed. I mean, maybe there was one debate like where he hasn't, that I just haven't seen, but it seemed like to me like that he really likes to go off of a script.
Yeah. And Tom and I have had our differences in the past, but I mean, he's pretty cool. Like, I don't really
it seems cool. It's just his debates are a little hard to follow sometimes.
Yeah, I just, of course, his arguments are like to appeal to hyper skepticism, like we that maybe the evidence for and that evidence against kind of cancel each other out. That we have no way of knowing. It's kind of like an appeal to remain in ignorance, like we just don't know.
Yeah, because I actually did. The one I did listen to him was he had that lady she was on Corruption Christianity, talk about the Pascal's wager.
Yeah.
And he had her on, and they had a pretty good discussion. But Tom Jump just basically made a point that like we have no way of knowing that like maybe atheist is the most likely way of get to heaven, or maybe like killing everybody you see is the most likely way to get to heaven. He's like, we have no idea way of knowing this, and I'm just like, that is just too skeptical for me to.
I feel like that's just skeptical for no reason.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I just said I feel like that is a skepticism for. I mean, that's taking skepticism way too far.
Yeah, that,
Yeah,
I agree.
I mean, it's like you don't apply that to other areas, and you know, I think it's really bad argumentation because, I mean, if you want to apply that amount of skepticism, how do we know anything? You know, I mean,
Exactly. He
and you
basically,
know,
I mean, and he'll basically
the
say
goal of
Liz. Yeah,
science
that
and
was her name,
philosophy
Liz.
it's the goal of science and philosophy to kind of look into that and not just throw our hands up. Well, who knows? You know.
Yeah, and going back to that one girl on Capturing Christianity about that, didn't she recently do a debate with Cosmic Skeptic?
Yeah, that was actually pretty good. I only like caught some of it, and I kind of do want to
Okay,
go back. Yeah, Cosmic Skeptic's actually been doing more debates, and I find that pretty interesting. I mean, he's definitely like well articulated, or like he can.
Oh yeah,
say it.
dude, he's a very bright guy.
Oh yeah,
I just think his conclusions are like
right.
I'll be following him, and then he goes here. I'm just like, oh no, I don't think that's where we're going with that. That's
yeah.
what
Which about that, there actually is this one quote like from John Lennox, which I love. Now I know I'm paraphrasing; it's not word for word, but the point is the same. Even if it's from a smart person, nonsense is nonsense.
Right. Yeah.
nonsense remains nonsense, even espoused
Yeah.
by Nobel Prize winning physicists. Yeah.
Yeah. And this comment, like this is from an atheist here, and obviously, like he's willing to go on record and say that atheism is not likely the way to get to heaven. And I think most atheists would agree.
Yeah.
And, you know,
that's a new
whatever
one.
happened
Man.
to those who shall not kill?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just seems like you're just taking it too far. But yeah, and Cosmic Skeptic actually did another debate about veganism or whatever. That one, I don't know. Like I don't know.
Actually, I believe that one was earlier
today,
as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Oh, they already did it? I thought it was tonight.
I think they were doing it earlier this morning.
Wait, what debate?
Oh.
It was a veganism debate because he's
yeah,
big on veganism now.
Oh, yeah, and by the way, no, it's not immoral to eat fish. I mean, how could that possibly be immoral to like eat fish? I mean, come on.
Now, just my own personal 2 cents about this. Now, I'm not against eating other animals, and I mean, heck, I mean, people, I mean, us Homo sapiens, I mean, biologically, we are omnivores after all, which means we can eat both meat or plants. The bottom line is, if you don't want to eat meat, well, then just don't. And I mean, you don't have to. You can eat meat or plants all you want. It's because we are omnivores. Because me personally, I don't mind eating an animal like, say, turkey, ham, or whatnot. It's because it's for survival. But it's also one other thing is if I want to see the animal like get tortured or whatnot. It's like no, I don't want to see that because I'm not a psycho. And now the one animal that I refuse to eat is because I'm a huge dog person. No matter what, I don't care if I'm starving or what. I never ever will eat a dog. I do not care if my life depended on it or what. Ain't gonna happen.
I'll eat the bird.
I'll grab the argument. Yeah, one argument that I do when I do think about this whole thing though is like I can see how you could think like the factory farming system or whatever it's gone too far or whatever, and I could definitely see that argument. I don't maybe like where we've gotten to is just a bad place or whatever.
I can definitely see that.
But I just don't see how like eating meat is morally wrong like in every situation.
No.
But
hey, invoking. I was going to ask you. Like, I saw you recently posted on Facebook that like you just like became an idealist.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What was it like? What kind of convinced you, or what kind of like pointed you in that direction? If I could ask.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Basically, I was default substance dualist simply because I already didn't. I didn't believe that we are just machines. I didn't believe that we're just physical. So I was already right off the bat not a physicalist. And I understood, you know, kind of what the hard problem of consciousness demanded. So then I became aware of the other options because I knew about idealism, but just like kind of where the rest of you guys sit, I was like, okay, this seems like a lot. and I don't really know how to like process it and come to that conclusion. So I'll research the other stuff. So I looked into hylomorphism. I looked into um, panpsychism and neutral monism and things, and then I found out about these other avenues. Being more convinced that physicalism is false along the way. And then I was like, okay, well, I really substance dualism. I'll just lean back on that because that just seems to be where I should say I don't really know. But then, as I started looking into idealism more, and I started to have more conversations with JMD Apologetics, Michael Jones, and Kyle Allender. Over time, I started kind of to see where the objections were coming from and how they answered them, and then kind of looking into the physics. And then I started thinking about it more, and then I had some more conversations with Kyle Allender, and he basically allowed me to get my pins in order. And I was like, okay, idealism now makes sense. And then once I squared away that matter actually doesn't exist, I was idealist. So
yeah, he has a channel, Christian Idealism. It's a really good channel, and he a lot of times he'll do like videos that like really bring it down to like a easy to understand, level, and they're not like really long either. So
yeah, and he introduced me to Bernardo Castro, who is an atheist idealist, and his, I mean, no materialist has ever debunked that guy's arguments, and I was like, okay, these are just too good. And so some of the barriers in the beginning to idealism for me was, okay, how do we have, what are souls? Who are we? How does the resurrection work? Stuff like that. But then once I squared those things away, because one of the big things for me is we say that God is immaterial, and we say that he created something material, and we say he interacts with it. But then I started thinking, well, wait, why do we assume that he created a separate substance? Like, why would God create a separate substance? Like, why would he introduce a new ontological category into things? Like, it's so much more simpler to say that everything is just one substance. From the mental proceeds mental. Like, why would we say that from the mental proceeds non-mental? Like, that's kind of the thing we're trying to argue against the physicalists. So it makes more sense to say that everything is mental, but the expression, the extrinsic expression of it is what we call physical. But it's not itself physical. There's not a distinct category. It's just the extrinsic appearance of the fundamental consciousness, which is God, sustaining everything. Once I got on that, I was like, okay, well, that's simpler and it makes sense. So I'll go with it.
Yeah, and one thing
totally
I outlined in my debate is like, with God, like God's relation to the universe and to our world, it's kind of like panentheism, that God interpenetrates the world, but he also transcends it as well. So I think that really explains it well.
Yes, absolutely, I agree.
So off topic a little bit.
Here, let's try and maybe we could say like get this question before we like. I'm curious what you guys say about like form, shape, aesthetic. So those are just like information. Just basically our mind processes these different things, right?
Yeah. So when we say that like there's one fundamental like I would say dual aspect idealism. There's one fundamental substance and there's two aspects of it. We have the matter and then we have the minds. But it's one fundamental substance. It's not two, like substance dualism. There's just one. But with that one fundamental substance, the extrinsic appearance of things we would call ourselves disassociated alters of consciousness.
Yes.
And these objects that are not having experiences, that are not aware, we'd call those non-disassociated alters of consciousness.
That's really
I thought in the beginning, I'm like, are you saying that everything is conscious? But no, These are just the extrinsic appearance of non-disassociated alters of consciousness. So everything's mental, but the appearance of the objects that we interact with are not having experiences. They're not aware like we are. So if you just wrap your mind around one substance, it either can be matter or it can either be mind. Once you wrap around, okay, it's not matter, it's mind, then because I mean it's pragmatic to call this stuff physical. You're not going to go around going, oh yeah, and the non-dissociated alters of consciousness. You know, not going to say that.
Yeah.
Right.
But
That's a crucial point that you're making. Crucial.
Yeah, exactly.
Otherwise, we're just going to get into panpsychism, and
Exactly, and I also think that same objection as I talked about Tom Jump, I use the same against panpsychism. I think that panpsychists are stopping too early, and with the foundation concerning consciousness. So the different forms and everything are just the extrinsic appearances of these different aspects of the fundamental consciousness. So how I picture it is, take a one big circle, and that's reality, and God, and so this one big circle is God, right? And then within that is the universe.
that's panentheism. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's not like God is the universe, but rather God is not separate from the universe.
Right.
So there's not God, universe, and then reality. It's God and then the universe. So, and he's
very good.
So it adds a whole new picture when we say that he sustains the universe, because
we move and have our being and so forth. Yeah.
Absolutely, because I was going to say that, like, if God, let's say, if it's not possible, but if God stopped existing, the universe wouldn't exist.
Right.
But on the other view, where it's God in the universe, God could stop existing, but the universe would have this existential inertia type concept. Yeah. So
right, and that's why, like I mentioned that during the debate too. Like I hold to panentheism, that God is in the universe, but also is greater and transcends. Of course, not to be confused with pantheism, but and I think a lot of people didn't really understand that concept of panentheism, and like you're mentioning.
Yeah, I feel like that basically makes sense. Like without knowing the terms, that's probably what I would have held to. I don't think God like jumps in our universe and then jumps out or whatever.
Right. I mean, and like I've tried to, yes. And see, another thing that he was complaining is like, well, God would be limited by the constants of like this universe, or like if there's a multiverse, he'd be limited to within the multiverse. And it's like, no, he's both within and outside. He's transcendent. So he's not bound within our laws of physics and has to work with them. He's transcendent.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something like what a lot of atheists like will use against Christianity, is like that. Oh, we have all these naturalistic explanations. Like we thought that the lightning bolts like were thrown by Zeus, and then we figured out why later on. But the thing is, I definitely do agree that it's definitely not a good argument at all. But what I just want to chime in about is that it doesn't mean that God cannot act through naturalistic things, and we just may not know about it. And it even says in Acts 16, like that God even used an earthquake like to free Apostle Paul from a cave, and it even says in Genesis like that he let the earth bring forth the animals. And so yeah.
Right, yeah, and that's one thing I mentioned in the debate too, that I myself learned from Francis Collins. Like when you have intelligent design, they say that like God works with, uses the laws of physics and everything, manipulates them and causes this and that, like you're talking about. See, my argument is that God works through the laws of physics, not inside of them. So that objection totally wouldn't apply to like, an idealist perspective at all.
Yeah, I heard it's basically like how we talk about evolution. Like he set it up in such a way that it worked out on its and not like a deistic way, but like just in a way that where he just laid it all out and it worked exactly according to his plan.
Right, and see, that shows that God's more powerful, because if he had to come in himself and start like messing with stuff, I mean, I think it's a lot more powerful to just speak the word and it happens.
Yeah, I heard there was
Absolutely.
a debate on Modern Day Debate with Kent Hovind and this like Dennis Lamoureux or whatever.
Oh, Dennis Lamoureux, yeah.
Yeah, and that was a good one. And he had made an analogy that I thought was really good related to that. So he basically said, like, the young earth creationist way of thinking about God is like, say he's playing pool and he steps up, boom, 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 knocks every single ball in, and then last shot knocks 8 ball and wins the game. And then he basically said his view, like on a theistic evolutionist view, is God just one shot breaks all the ball, they all fall in perfectly, and last thing to fall in is the 8 ball. Like it's just one shot as opposed to a bunch of perfect shots.
Yeah, and one other thing I want to chime about that. Okay, what kind of God sounds more intelligent to you? Like that before the Big Bang, let's just say like that God like would go here. I'm gonna create this, and then once when my end result comes in, being humans, he will then have a relationship with them. Versus a God's saying, "Oh well, I gotta come in and create the Cambrian explosion. Oh no, wait, dinosaurs got too big. And so I have to shrink them down." Like versus, I kind of think that I should kind of make it colder now for the ice age, because I kind of think it's kind of, I just kind of think it's just kind of too warm.
Yeah, I'm curious about this question here, though. I don't really know how to answer. So he's basically, where does God stop and we begin? Because if free will is true, not sure how we can say God is us. Not really quite sure what he's getting at.
I'm not really quite sure.
Is he talking about like God's sovereignty and while we have our free will?
I don't know. And I think he asked it like when we were talking about this panentheism, but I don't.
Maybe he should try to rephrase it.
Yeah, and I think it kind of had to do with like how you said like the big circle and then like the little circle.
Where does God stop and where do we begin? My point was saying that God is not separate from he's not separate from the universe. Like he's not bound by it, but he's not this outside separate force. That's kind of what I was trying to say. He's not separate from his
creation. We're like our own people still. We're not.
Yeah, it'd be because from like what the physics would show and stuff, that it would be our universe would be a projection of God is the foundation, and we are our universe is the projection, space-time is the projection of the foundation. So that's what I would say. And free will is true. Again, because if free will is true, how can we say?
But yeah, I think he tried to rephrase it a little bit here.
Okay, so we are alters, right? But if all alters are part of God, where does God's will stop and our will begin? So
that's kind of like saying we're create. I mean,
yeah, I don't think we're trying. Like you guys are saying that we're like part of God.
No, a good way to look at panentheism is that God is both immanent and transcendent simultaneously. He's near and he's transcendent, and so it's not saying that like it's not to be confused with pantheism, which would say that God is all is God. I mean, it's not saying that.
Right. Yeah. No, we are not God, but since we look at God as mind, and that is the foundation upon our existence, we would just be like user interface symbols carrying information. We carry our own information as we go through our existence. And so because we have that spiritual essence already built in, we we are capable, we are endowed with freedom of the will and things. So that's kind of how I would look at that.
Basically, we're made in God's image, but we're not God.
Right? Yeah. Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know if that makes sense to him or not, but
yeah, I don't think like
not one of
from
these
what I'm
things.
gathering, like idealism doesn't really like. It's not really a big like deciding factor on this topic. You know, what I mean? Like I don't know. It kind of doesn't. This is kind of separate.
well, if it makes things simpler, all idealism posits is that there's one fundamental substance, and that's the mental. It's all idealism is saying.
Mhm.
And if
Yeah,
you are
that's-
on board with that, and you are not satisfied with our explanations, maybe, you already have a good starting point. And I would talk to the people that helped me get to where I'm at, and maybe they can articulate it better than I can. That's what I would say about that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, same here. And so Travis, I was wanting to ask. So you said that during your debate that you used to not be a Christian, and so and then you converted, but then
Right.
you became convinced of the evidence, and so so that happened recently or what?
Okay, yeah. So you want me to kind of go over that?
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, about 2.5 years ago, I was raised, not really going to church. I was an atheist, and like I just straight up didn't believe that there was like some intelligence that actually loved me, and I just didn't buy it. But I was listening to, in fact, we've become good friends since then. Robert Rowe's channel, Sentinel Apologetics.
Right, yeah, him.
Yeah. And he showed like a lot of Hugh Ross, and so I was majoring in earth science anyway, so I understood like Hugh Ross would use a lot of things like the precision in the late heavy bombardment period, the plate tectonics and all these things that just not only are precisely as they are for us to be here, but how they all correlate and how they all correlate for like one specific outcome, like for human beings to be here to, and to have a purpose. And it was really Hugh Ross and the fine tuning that convinced me, or I would say the fine tuning just made me really question materialism. Okay. And then I started like, looking at more of Hugh Ross's arguments, and then got into like William Lane Craig, and even like talked to Rob quite a bit from Sentinel Apologetics. And I was like, yeah, this is legit. So I actually came to faith through apologetics on YouTube before I even started going to church or anything.
Nice. And so I actually did give my testimony on my channel. And then maybe sometime in the future, I could have you come on my channel, and then you could possibly give yours. And so, so one other question. And
just to add real quick, I would say that apologetics does work because I myself am a product of apologetics.
Exactly.
So it does work.
Oh yeah, for certain. And so, so how did your family react once when they heard and like that you converted?
Really well. My mom is a very devout Christian. My a lot of the rest of my family, I mean, they were kind of like, that's good. That's good. I think they were happy for me, but it was really like my parents, namely my mom, that were, really happy about it because, I didn't really go to church growing up, and, so they were happy because like I just kind of came to this like on my own after I'm grown, so I'm 34 now. Like I've only been a Christian since like I was like 31.
Yeah, it's really cool.
But
Yeah,
just a heads up.
it's kind of rare to convert like in your 30s.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, just a heads up. If you three ever watch my testimony on my channel, it's definitely not a very easy one to sit through. it's because that it can be very, very heart wrenching, and so I just kind of feel like that if you two ever watch it, I kind of feel like that I should give you the heads up.
Okay, thanks, man. Yeah,
man. For
I know I've heard like bits and pieces, but I never like watched the full video.
And man, I've also even like have heard other stories like about how some Christians like have converted like literally like when they were on their deathbed, and then honestly, I think that throughout your whole entire life, and who probably will agree, I really think you can convert to Christianity any time of your life.
Yeah, I became a Christian.
Yeah. Absolutely. I just mean it's like a lot harder, like say, being, 34 or, back then when I was 31 and like not really doing it like, growing up your whole life. It's harder, but it's, yeah, you're right. It's definitely.
Yeah. So,
yeah, I've been a Christian since, I mean, I always believed, but I wasn't serious about it. I full on converted in May 2014.
Yeah, the one thing I'm a little bit thankful for is that I never went through like the phase of being a strong young Earth creationist for like a long time or anything. Like,
oh yeah, same here. Like I went straight into like an old Earth evolutionary.
I heard about it. I heard about like I became a Christian. I was probably a Christian for like a year, and then I like realized that like okay, young Earth creation. This is like an argument out there, and I like looked into it for like a week and was like, all right, no way. And then the more I read it,
and I was once a young Earth creationist, and if you want to hear the full story about how I came and left, you can go watch this video like that I did on Dapper Dino's YouTube channel. And there were a lot of reasons why that I left, but one of them was when a few summers ago, when I was doing my research and whatnot on Age of the Earth and whatnot, a friend of mine shared an article online on Facebook about people who still believe that the Earth is flat. When I saw that, I was like, "You've got to be kidding me!" I was just so baffled, and I thought this was refuted like centuries ago, and I felt so compelled as to research why in the world would anybody still believe the Earth is flat. But then when I found out that it's because of how some people take things in the Bible very literally, like the firmament and whatnot.
Yeah,
that was one of the things like that got me like to reconsider like my young Earth views. It was because I was like, I don't want to be like these guys.
Yeah.
Thank you for realizing that, because that's one thing I try to point out. I'm like, so wait, I'm like, you guys will say no, these passages are not don't support a flat Earth, and then you guys will actually invoke good hermeneutical principles, but then forget about those with the rest of the passage.
Exactly.
You saw that.
Yeah, I want to debate at some point. I really want to debate a young Earth creationist and just say like, based on your interpretation, it is only logical to get a flat Earth. Like, I don't think you can be a young Earth creationist without believing in a flat Earth without being inconsistent.
Because in the ancient Near East, they believed in like a 3-tier universe with a hard dome that held up the primordial waters.
So if you're gonna believe in their like concept of like how old everything is, I don't know why you wouldn't take their concept of the shape.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then Spartan knows about this. It's because he saw my video that I did on Dapper's YouTube channel, and Travis invoking theism. Prepare to have your mind blown. And I mean, if you thought that you have heard some serious straw man arguments, nothing will top this. And so I used to be on Nathan Thompson's Facebook Flat Earth group, and And then when I was in that group, I used to debate with a lot of people who thought that the Earth was flat. And this one blew my mind from this one argument that I heard from a flat earther. He said, that his ultimate irrefutable proof that the Earth is flat is because football does not exist.
Wait, what?
Yeah, he said the Earth is flat because. Wait.
Yeah.
And there was this one other flat earther who said the Earth is flat because toilet water. Because when you look inside of a toilet, the water is flat, so therefore the Earth is flat. I'm like, what?
I swear, sometimes they like argue from a place where like they think people who believe in a globe think it's like the size of a beach.
Yeah, like that. Apparently, they thought that NASA and NFL teamed up to trick people to thinking. What?
That's the thing about flat earthers. Like, it's a conspiracy, and everybody's in on it. NASA,
Even the NFL, apparently.
Yeah, other countries we don't even get along with. Like, just everybody's in on it. I'm like,
yeah, I like that. The moon landing was faked, and that was one of the similarities that I noticed between young Earth creationism and flat Earth is like both of them are. I mean, both of them are conspiracy theories. It's because of how young Earth creationists think that scientists are evil and they're trying to take you away from God. When the majority of scientists, like Francis Collins, actually are Christians, and so that's obviously not true.
Yeah, that Cy Gart mentioned, which I kind of agree with, though. Like, it's fun to talk about flat Earth, how ridiculous it is, but I almost think like Modern Day Debate and some of these channels should like stop hosting as many as they do because it's just dumb.
As a matter of fact, and I'll don't get me wrong, James is a good friend of mine, but it's like. At this time right now, like, we don't need like these conspiracy theories like during this pandemic. I mean,
exactly.
I don't think it's too healthy to give them a platform.
Oh yeah, especially not now during this pandemic. It's because the worst thing that we can have is misinformation.
Yes.
But I swear, I mean, it will be hard for me to hear anything more ridiculous than the Earth being flat because football's not real.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be really hard. I mean,
if James can get that guy on Modern Day Debate, I guess I'd listen to that.
Yeah, I definitely would love to see that. But it's really unfortunate that I forgot his name because that was like 2 years ago when that happened. But
I would love to see Kent Hovind debate a flat earther. I would
love that.
Yeah, like a Christian flat earther or whatever.
Probably, and I think that who would do it, Nathan Thompson, and that there's this other flat Earth Christian advocate. I believe so. Yeah, and there's other ones I just can't remember.
He's and SpongeBob thing or whatever on his last.
SpongeBob Imaginary Land. Oh man, I swear. That was so entertaining. Like when he kept on doing that with that SpongeBob toy. SpongeBob Imaginary Land. And like he had his hammer.
Yeah, I guess flat earther.
But I guess you could say that with his hammer, he really hammered it in.
This was a pretty good conversation. I guess. Winding down at this point, but I appreciate you guys coming on.
And like in a closing thing to kind of sum up the debate, my argument was not refuted. It really wasn't even addressed, and then what was attacked was something I wasn't even arguing for either, which I would certainly defend, but it's not part of the argument. And just to clarify, like if Rage watches this, the digital physics, emergent space-time or idealism argument is a argument from contingency, not fine-tuning, contingency.
Mm-hmm. Spot on, man.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, I guess we can end it there. Thank everybody for watching.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. All right.